Since liberals say things that are nice and comforting but frequently fail to generate the desired results or improve the situation, liberals have had to shift the focus away from actions and results and focus on words. But this strategy opens up tremendous opportunities for bad actions to be carried out free from resistance, and political correctness is the vehicle that allows the highest forms of evil to maneuver. This policing of thoughts and words causes them to attack others, typically conservatives, who are trying to address real problems with real consequences. The rapes and murders of innocent people as a result of the Muslim migration in Europe is real. Human beings are suffering in great numbers solely so that the left can feel like a good humanitarian. It is hate speech to say that blacks have higher rates of crime. It is hate speech to say that gender is biology and not a social construct that can be changed. It is hate speech to say that two gay parents is not a great environment to raise a child. It is hate speech to say that we should not import Islamic refugees because there are terrorists hiding within those migrant groups.
You cannot tell among the migrants who the jihadis are, and jihadis are coming. And so what exactly are we supposed to do about that? What the Western authorities would have us do, Justin Trudeau, Barack Obama, David Cameron, all the rest of them, certainly Angela Merkel in Germany, they would have us say it is worth the risk. It is worth the risk of a few jihadis to be able to alleviate the humanitarian crisis in Syria, and to be able to bring in these people who will be such an asset to our nations. In other words, it is preferable to have people being killed in jihad attacks in the West. That's preferable to stopping this refugee flow in view of the fact that there could be jihad terrorists and there will be jihad terrorists among the migrants. Now, is that really a good trade-off? Saudi Arabia, how many refugees have they taken? Absolutely zero. Do you know why? Are they racist, bigoted Islamophobes? They didn't take any of the migrants because they said, you know, there are jihad terrorists among those people. And the world opinion makers said, oh, okay, well then you're excused, but not Europe, not Canada, not the US. If we say the same thing here, we are racist, bigoted Islamophobes.
In a politically correct world, bad words are worse than bad actions, and the liberal frequently defends the worst people in the world. So if you want to commit bad actions, be a member of the left and say good words in public, but do bad things in private. And if you're a member of the left, those bad actions only occurred as a response to the bad words that caused it. So the liberal rushes to the defense of the bad actions and shines the spotlight on the bad words, and the concept of hate speech was born.
A recent Pew poll found that 95% of Americans believe citizens should have the right to criticize government policies publicly. But the numbers weaken when you start talking about offensive speech. 40% of millennials polled believe that the government should be able to prevent people from making statements that are offensive to minority groups, for instance.
I think that if you ever say someone, you know, I hate you because you're so-and-so, that's that should not be allowed. In a way, it's free speech, but in a way, again, it's a hate crime.
A generation is being raised not to believe in freedom of speech, but rather that they should have freedom from speech they dislike. This is a threat to both pluralism and democracy itself.
Liberals are constantly screaming and shouting their opinions down everyone else's throat and simultaneously claiming that they don't have a voice and that they never get heard. And so they are the ones who really deserve freedom of speech over everyone else.
That's the other thing about free speech. When I say that it's about power and privilege, it only enables things like hate speech, because it makes it seem that everything that we say has equal weight, when that's not true. Those using the rhetoric of free speech are individuals who already are in positions of power, who are creating history, who are creating these dominant narratives. Free speech conceptually is about this idea of equality, that everyone can have the right to say something, but that's not the way our society works. That's not the way this college campuses work. We only hear the same reiteration of particular voices over and over again, and that's white students' voices.
But we do hear all the liberal complaints. They are being heard, but usually the things they are saying are inaccurate, nonsensical, and stupid. and because of that, they are ignored. The liberals reinterpreted freedom of speech to mean that the rest of us should stop, listen, and value what they say and make changes based on their recommendations. But when their idiotic statements are dismissed, they become enraged, because if nobody values their opinion, it must be because of their race, their gender, or some other form of discrimination or bigotry, and they believe that you have robbed them of their freedom of speech, and because of that, they can rob you of your rights in response. And the liberal becomes a vigilante in the name of niceness to stop hate speech.
Everything is sexist, everything is racist, everything is homophobic.
Harassment is threats of violence, but it's also the day-to-day grind of you're a liar, you suck.
They take down conservative event posters in the name of their free speech, or pull fire alarms, or call in bomb threats, or bombard stages and steal microphones, or block entryways. Today you'll notice a disproportionate rage when the liberal faces opposition to its beliefs. It hasn't always been this way. Liberals weren't shutting down or banning conservative speaking events or fining individuals $250,000 for using the wrong gender pronouns or anything like that. In 2008, Barack Obama was openly against gay marriage.
Define marriage.
I believe that marriage is the union between a man and a woman. Now, for me as a Christian, it's also a sacred union. God's in the mix.
But before his term in office is finished, saying that exact same thing is a fireable offense. The need to feel good about themselves motivates the liberals to fight the mean thoughts and words of others, and hate speech has quickly become a top priority for the liberal foot soldier. Just as they've been able to classify a crime carried out against someone with a different race, gender, sexuality, or religion as a hate crime, liberals have decided to do the same, but with words. One who says words that aren't flattering to some ethnic group, gender, or group of religious people is hate speech. If the liberal can't stop reality from happening, which so often proves liberalism's claims to be incorrect, the next best thing is to force people not to acknowledge it and not to speak it.
A couple years ago, I was speaking at Cal Poly. There was a young girl who at the end, during the Q&A, she said, "I believe in free speech, but I don't believe in hate speech. And hate speech is not free speech." And I've heard that so many times since then. That was the first time I've heard it. Have you ever heard that? Yeah. It's an increasingly common theme. Hate speech is not free speech. And I said to her, well then, what you're saying is that hate speech should be outlawed. Hate speech should not be allowed, correct? And she said yes. And I expect that the reason why we're having this conversation is because you believe that what I've been giving you over the last 40 minutes is hate speech? Yes. So you think that this whole evening should not have been allowed, I should not have been brought onto campus? Yes. Who do you think ought to be empowered to decide what constitutes hate speech and what does not? And she said, what? And this is where, see, it gets very hairy. I said, well, who gets to decide? I don't think I'm purveying hate speech. And I understand it's a minority view at Cal Poly, I'm sure, and at most universities around the world. But there is a considerable number of people who don't believe that to speak honestly about Islam and jihad and the threat that it constitutes has anything to do with hate speech. And who actually think that the charge of hate speech is a tactic designed to shut down discussion on this issue and to marginalize those who speak about it so that the jihad can advance unimpeded and unopposed. And what you're saying is that you want to entrust someone with an extraordinary power to determine what is acceptable to be discussed and what is not. And that person would be a tyrant who would rule over us and destroy the freedoms that we have in this country at this point.
If asking the question to the liberal, who should determine what constitutes hate speech, they will likely blab on for a while without a concrete answer. But when you strike to the heart of it, the answer is always, they're the ones who get to determine what constitutes hate speech. Because a consistent theme with modern liberalism is that their feelings trump every single one of your rights.
You know, words matter. And so when that letter was sent on behalf of an administration official, somebody who's supposed to represent the students, to create, you look at the documents that Yale sends out, the application registration documents, and it's all about having an inclusive community.
This guy was defending Halloween.
Well, he wasn't defending Halloween. He was defending being offensive to a community of people that are being marginalized. I mean, 7% of the
He
Yale...
was saying if you want to go as Tatiana,
No,
the frog
in
princess,
blackface.
you should be allowed to.
No. He was acknowledging that someone who shows up in blackface, it's okay, it's a joke.
And you think that should be banned? You should,
I think
Halloween, that should be banned. And what if you want a guy who wants to dress like a girl? Should he be banned?
We had
They
this
are
debate about
saying
things 10
gender
years ago.
expression would be offensive if you want. So
Well,
a
that's a separate
guy
debate.
dressed up as a female nurse.
That's not for white people
offensive.
to determine. These things are not for the people who are doing it to determine. It is for those who feel hurt. If you feel hurt, that's not for
That's
white people
offensive.
to determine. These things are not for the people who are doing it to determine. It is for those who feel hurt.
Well, now the selectively offended get to run the rest of the country. I mean, this is what we are creating. We are creating a society of panty-waist fascists. What we are creating is a group of people who are oversensitive to everything and then are willing to call the cops as soon as they are offended. It's actually incredible, and it's a violation of the First Amendment. If this is the climate that we're supposed to create, if this is supposed to create openness and tolerance on the campus, I'm missing the openness and tolerance in let's call the police if I'm mildly offended because my feelings have been hurt. I mean, this is creating a country of crazy people. How can you watch this and not go crazy?
The liberal crusade to fight hate speech makes the liberal feel like they've done their part. They're contributing to the good of mankind. It is nothing but selfishness and their way of making them feel good about themselves. We have half of an entire generation who has grown up in a liberal education system that has protected them from negative feelings and prevented them from coming in contact with things that make them feel bad, including opposing ideas. So when they hear ideas that they don't like, they become enraged.
Human being! I do not stand with this! I don't like your side is fucking offensive!
Babies cry when they get hungry. Little children throw tantrums when things don't go their way. But as people get older and more mature, they become in better control of their emotional reactions. But the politically correct takeover has prevented the need to develop this emotional poise. And now as adults, these people have never fully developed. They are emotionally handicapped. They cannot deal with opposing ideas and consider all opposing ideas as hateful because they are so foreign to them. Liberals are constantly at odds with the truth. Men and women have the same biology. Climate change is the greatest threat to America. Cops are gunning down black guys while they're just minding their own business. Islam is a religion of peace. Liberals battle with reality as a 24/7 job, especially when the evidence consistently turns out not favoring the liberal viewpoint. Liberals have found it more difficult to stop reality from showing up, and reality frequently runs contrary to what liberals have claimed to be true. So liberalism has had to intensify their efforts and get more aggressive with opposing beliefs. Liberals are coming after the First Amendment at full throttle because truth and facts are roadblocks that liberalism struggles to get around, and the social policing and stigmatization of opposing words and facts is the attempt to rally support for more formal changes. The leftist judges on the Supreme Court have demonstrated on nearly every occasion, especially regarding social issues, that they are more than happy to reinterpret the Constitution however they need to in order to advance liberalism's movement. Hence, Christian business owners today can be sued for not participating in gay weddings, the federal government can threaten to defund your children's education if you don't agree that men are actually women because they say so. Priests and ministers can face criminal charges for using the wrong gender pronouns, and so on. To a truly objective party, forcing people to go along with things that are blatantly and scientifically provable to be false is wrong. A free society can't punish someone for speaking obvious truths, like a man is a man and a woman is a woman, any more than they can punish anyone for saying the sky is blue or birds have feathers. But because the liberal deliberately chooses to ignore reality all the time, they are more than willing to force you to ignore it as well. In fact, it actually helps them a lot, because if liberals demand that the sky is red and everyone else is too scared to say it's actually blue, then the liberal viewpoint goes unchallenged, which of course is the whole point for the existence of political correctness and hate speech to begin with.